consistency beats convincing. Try to treat failure as part of the process. When your kids see that the setbacks don't actually define them, confidence then becomes unshakable. The hardest thing is consistency. When you don't have consistency, you break the pattern. Hello and welcome to the first group coaching call that we're doing with the Warrior Academy Online. If this is your first ever call, I'll tell you how it works. Essentially, you can pre-submit your questions and I will take some time to answer as many questions as possible. I select the questions based on what I feel would benefit most people in the group. Some of the questions are identical, for instance, or some parents are focusing on something that others might not need support with. So what I try and do is I try and answer questions that will benefit everybody. So even if you haven't submitted a question, I would suggest watching this video so that you can learn from the other parents and you can learn from some of the insights we're going to be sharing today. And every single time we do this, make sure you submit your questions in advance. The link is in the description of this video. So let's get started. So I had a great question here from Richard in the group. Richard said, my child won't listen when I ask them to do the daily habit. How do I encourage that? Okay, first up, you're going to experience pushback with your kids. You are guiding them along a 30-day challenge, which sometimes is going to be asking them to go out of their comfort zone or do things that they find boring or they don't want to do. So from a parent's point of view, expect pushback and be prepared for it. It's really important as a parent that you make everything fun and into a game, especially if you're in the junior section. If you have a junior child, having a game is really, really important. If you have a senior or a teen, you're probably going to expect more pushback, but there are ways to overcome that as well. And one of the key things you can do here is model it, right? So if you want your child to perform a daily habit routine, do it yourself. Ultimately, when you join in yourself, you're modeling that behavior, you're modeling that habit. So your kids will listen to you, but they'll copy what you say far more than they just listen to you. One of the mistakes a lot of parents make when they start to develop a new habit is they overwhelm their kids. They do too much too soon. So start very, very small. Start with something very easy. Over time, you'll build up a series of wins. Every single time they do something in the right way or they perform the habit or the task, in their minds, you're rewiring their confidence to say, I can do this. This is part of my routine, part of my habit. One mistake is doing too much too soon. And finally, tracking progress becomes really key. Making sure that you're showing your child that they are achieving visually. They need something tangible, especially if they're younger. In fact, even when they're older, right? So all the way up to teens. Teens need this slightly less, but actually even checklists work well with teens. But if we're looking at the younger age group, a tangible representation of their progress is really useful. Sticker charts, drawings, big colorful tick boxes, all these things that stick up on a fridge, on their wall or on a door really, really help. So Richard, I hope that helps answer your question. Anyone else who is struggling with developing a habit for their child? Let's move on to the next question. So Johnson asks, what if my child rolls their eyes or says this whole confidence thing is silly? I think that's probably, I can't see your age there of your child there, Johnson, but it sounds like a preteen situation. The first thing I'd say is if your child rolls their eyes, don't immediately respond with something negative or some sort of conflict, right? You don't want to turn this into an argument. The first thing is to keep it really light and playful. Don't argue with them. Just kind of rise above it or just let them in that moment, argue with you if you need to. When you actually go through this with them, keeping it lighthearted takes the pressure off. Sometimes kids will say that something's boring or they don't like something because they feel pressure doing it. So that might be a signal for you to back off a little bit and to let this kind of evolve gradually. The other thing is, if you're trying to develop that habit, I've mentioned in the last question, they need to model you doing it, right? Now, one of the clever ways you can do this is rather than saying, let's do the habit together, we're going to do the habit together, just do the habit yourself and let them almost find out you're doing it, right? So it's less about you showing them I'm doing it, but you're almost letting them discover that you've been doing this habit the whole time. And then you can invite them to join in. It's quite a clever way of doing it. The other thing is making sure that you praise the smallest effort. So even if it's a tiny effort they've made, just praise that. It's all about momentum at this stage, just make sure you don't overhype, right? Kids will completely see through any unauthentic praise. So it's got to be genuine. Try and pick up on something specific you liked about them doing that habit. For instance, I loved how brave you were when you stood up and put your hand up, or I love how you've really got stronger with your posture, the way you're standing up now. I love how you're able to breathe and control yourself more. It really shows that you're in control of your breathing for a teen, for example. Bottom line, you want to focus on consistency. You're not going to get instant buy-in with a lot of this stuff, right? 30 days, I'm trying to teach you as a parent to learn as many different exercises and techniques that you can use to develop your child's confidence. And what you're going to experience is resistance. Not everything is going to work straight away. Not everything will click with you or your child. But at the end of those 30 days, you're going to have a list of things that really work because you've tried everything, and that will form your family's confidence framework. That is what you then use going forward after this challenge to build lifelong confidence. I hope that helps, Johnson. Right. Mr. Ali has said, my teenager is glued to their phone. That doesn't surprise me. And compares himself to everyone online. What should I do? Right. Social comparison, one of the biggest challenges that kids face today. It can destroy their self-esteem. It can debilitate them. It can make them hyper anxious. It's one of the huge issues that parents face. We can't run from it. We can't hide from it. You can't prevent your child from having a phone forever. However, if you're watching this and you're wondering, when should I give my child a phone? I would say delay that as long as possible. One of the most important things when it comes to phones is that when you give your child a phone, they will often draw their own self-worth or self-esteem from that phone, from what other people say about them, rather than from within. So one of the things I say to parents is I'll give my daughter a phone, who asks me every day, when she's old enough, or she shows me that she draws her self-worth and her own confidence from within and not from other people around her. And that's quite hard to achieve, but ultimately, for me, you're looking at 16 plus. Now, if you do have a child with a phone, they're glued to their phone, and they're comparing themselves to people around them, a couple of really key things. Have a rule in your house that no screens are allowed in the bedroom. That one rule will mean that they're not going to be sat alone, absorbed in their phone, while they're comparing themselves to other people, or while they're potentially going through cyberbullying. It's just a basic rule, a fundamental rule that I would try and instill in every single home if you could. Apart from that, I would have really open conversations with your kids about social media, about the reality. Try to talk to them about how social comparison happens throughout life and how it can start to make someone who's got everything, or someone who should be very happy, start to feel very unhappy. You can talk about how comparison really is the thief of joy, right? And how maybe you've experienced that in your own life. Maybe you can share with them a relatable story about you were really happy, but then you saw your neighbor had a new car, and then you wanted the car, and you spotted yourself thinking, I always want something new, something more. Comparison is something which can just chip away at the joy we should be feeling, and rather shift the focus to gratitude instead, which probably is a great point to move on to. Encouraging daily gratitude. So if you've got a child who is really on their phone all the time, you can see they're comparing themselves, a lot of social comparison, shift the focus to gratitude. Look at some of the exercises that we, on this course, that we talk about gratitude journaling, gratitude jar, writing down gratitude notes, sharing gratitude or a moment of gratitude at the table. All these different exercises should be something you can then double down on and really implement as part of your family framework. I've mentioned that you should remove screens from the room, but I'd also limit it before bedtime. This is the time where your child needs to be calming down and resetting themselves and transitioning into the bedtime routine. If they are on their phone or on a screen or watching Netflix or whatever it is right before bed, they're probably going to be thinking about everything they've just watched before they sleep. And that's going to make things worse for them as well. And finally, you want to highlight to your child what their strengths are, right? Comparison is a normal part of living. We all compare ourselves to each other. One of the key things is understanding and teaching your child that every one of their friends has strengths and weaknesses, as do they. Their friend might be better or worse at something than them, and vice versa. And one of the things you should double down on is teaching your child what their strengths are. watching them and saying, look, these are the things you're really good at. They should be proud of that. So, Mr. Ali, I hope that helps you with your teenager who's glued to their phone and is struggling with social comparison. Let's move on. Okay, so, Mrs. Patel, my child gives up the moment something gets hard. How do I build resilience? This all comes down to normalizing failure. If your child is terrified of failure, it's because they place all of the emphasis of the enjoyment or the success of something on how they perform. So their whole mindset is performative. What you want to really do instead is double down on praising the effort whenever they do anything. And this is kind of a long-term thing, right? It's not going to happen overnight. If you gradually praise the effort when your child does something difficult, they will then realize that it's not about succeeding or winning something. It's actually about having the courage to do something in the first place. That is one of the key shifts that's going to build resilience, because they'll realize that, they don't have to give up if they think they're going to fail. A lot of kids will start something and stop because they're worried they're going to fail. That won't happen if you double down on praising effort. So, effort over results. The other thing I would say is try to ask them, what can we try differently next time? So instead of fixing something, especially if you've got a senior routine, approach this as trying to ask them what they would do differently, because in doing that, they come up with the idea. They feel ownership, and then they'll feel more confident. So ask them what they would do differently changes things from you being critical and correcting them to them feeling empowered to make a change. So that works really well. Then I would maybe scale things back a little bit. If they're doing such big things that scare them, that feels like overwhelming pressure, scale it right back. Often if we are avoiding big things, it's because we're lacking momentum. So you can start building momentum in your child's life by stacking up loads of little wins of things like habits or exercises which they can do. That is key to building their confidence. And over time, they'll start to have more confidence. I hope that helps. Next question. So this one was from Mr. Lee. He has said, we are halfway through and I'm worried that I haven't seen any results yet. Is that normal? So, totally normal. Here's the reality. Everyone will join this challenge at different points in their child's life. Now, when you're trying to develop a child's confidence, you're not going to see an overnight change. That's why we do a 30-day challenge rather than a 24-hour challenge or a 7-day challenge. There are 7-day confidence challenges out there, but none will give you a 30-day money-back guarantee if you don't improve your child's confidence. We do. And here's why. If you follow every single exercise, what you're doing, Mr. Lee, is you are learning how to speak to your child, how to build habits, how to mentor your child through setbacks, how to put the focus on effort rather than results, and how to build momentum. All of these things then compound over time. So you won't just do one of the exercises for 7 days, what you may have done, and then see an immediate result. Some may. Maybe half the people on this group will have seen results by day 15. But the other half need a good month to actually see those shifts. But also, at the end of the month, when you do the scorecard, something you might notice is there are little subtle cues of confidence improving which you may not pick up on, right? Sometimes you're so in the thick of trying to develop these exercises and traits and habits with your kids, you don't realize the small things that they've already overcome. Maybe they're socializing more. Maybe they are putting their hand up in class more. Maybe you had a couple of comments from their teachers. All these things basically contribute to or show you that they are developing in confidence, but you need more time and you need consistency. Don't let this put you off. Keep pushing, keep growing, and keep being there for your child. It's really consistency over intensity, which is going to develop your child's confidence. So I hope that helps. Okay, let's take a little moment now to pull together the big takeaways from today's Q&A, because there were some real gems in those questions, and I hope that you gained a lot from it. But first of all, when I look at those questions, we talked a lot about getting kids to listen when it comes to daily habits. The magic here isn't in enforcing it, it's in making it fun. So when we turn habits into a game, we even join in ourselves and we start ridiculously small. I mean, if you've got a 10-minute exercise, just doing 10 seconds of it, you're basically lowering the barrier to entry of that game becoming successful. You lower the resistance. Progress then becomes something that they want to do, not something that you have to nag them about all the time. Then came the question about eye rolls and kids thinking this whole confidence thing is stupid or silly or whatever. That's totally normal. The key here is obviously don't battle it, just keep it really playful. Let them see you practicing confidence instead of preaching to them about it. Consistency beats convincing. So if you stay steady as a parent, most of that resistance just melts away over time, right? If they see you doing this habit every single day, guess what? It's going to normalize it and then they'll start doing it. We also talked about teen social media trap. So being glued to their screens, social comparison, and how that chips away at confidence. So the idea here is to shift their focus towards gratitude, having open chats with you about what's real and what's online. Having regular reminders of their strengths really helps with that. Even small daily actions that build a stronger sense of self-worth, that no screen can shake. And I shared some rules and guidance around when to give your child a phone and some rules at home which will help you protect them from cyberbullying and keeping them safe. We spoke about resilience, helping kids keep going when things get hard. A lot of children start something and they give up because they're terrified of failure. So what we need to do, the best move here, is to normalize failure. Try to treat failure as part of the process and ask them questions like, what can we try differently? What can we try next time? And really celebrate the effort over the outcome. When your kids see that the setbacks don't actually define them, confidence then becomes unshakable. So that's really key. The final question was, why am I not seeing results yet? Now you could be a week in, 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, and you might ask that question, right? The truth is that confidence doesn't show up overnight. It takes time. You have to be consistent. That is harder than doing a one-off intense exercise. You have to be there for your child. It's doing the reps, but doing them consistently. And that's one of the hardest things as parents, right? Actually, the reps to train the confidence muscle aren't that complicated. They aren't that hard. The hardest thing is consistency. When this happens, when you don't have consistency, you break the pattern, right? And when you break the pattern, sometimes you feel a setback. But the other thing you should focus on is that there are so many little cues you may have missed, right? Small risks that they're now taking. Maybe the slightly longer eye contact that they've got. It's all these signs that are actually momentum in disguise. So keep going. By day 30, I guarantee you're going to look back and you're going to realize that all this is working, but it does require patience, trusting the process, and consistency. So, as you leave today, remember this: confidence isn't built in the big moments, it's built in the tiny, repeated moments. So stay consistent, keep it playful, and try to lead your child through this 30-day challenge with calm, because the results will always follow.